Welcome to our deep dive today, all about the world of bacteria.
Bacteria.
Yeah, we've got this really cool bacteria basics lesson as source material,
Oh,
and it's full of all these like vibrant images of different types of bacteria.
wow.
I mean, it's amazing to think that these microscopic organisms are literally everywhere.
Yeah, it's true. They're everywhere and they do so much.
Right.
They really are essential to all these ecosystems all over the planet.
So let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
What exactly are bacteria?
Well, they're single-celled organisms, which basically means one tiny cell does all the work.
Okay.
And unlike our cells, which have a nucleus to store their DNA,
Right.
bacteria don't. They're what we call prokaryotes, meaning their DNA is just kind of floating around in a region called the nucleoid.
So no nucleus.
Nope, no nucleus. It's like if our cells were a house, all of our genetic information would be stored neatly in a filing cabinet.
Organized.
Exactly. But with bacteria, it's like all the files are scattered on the kitchen table.
Oh, wow. So no filing system for bacteria, but they still manage to survive and do all these amazing things.
More than survive, they thrive. Bacteria are found literally everywhere on Earth, from the deepest parts of the ocean to the air we breathe, even inside our own bodies.
That's incredible. So if we could zoom in on a bacterium, what would we see?
Imagine a microscopic spaceship,
Okay.
fully equipped with everything it needs to survive in its environment. You've got the cell membrane acting as the outer hull, controlling what goes in and out.
Like a spaceship's airlock.
Exactly. And inside you have the cytoplasm, a jelly-like substance where all the cellular processes
Yeah.
took place.
So like the spaceship's control room bustling with activity?
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Then you've got ribosomes.
Bro.
These are like tiny factories churning out proteins that the cell needs to function.
So they're like the engineers keeping everything running smoothly.
Exactly. And of course, there's the nucleoid, which we talked about earlier, holding the bacteria's genetic blueprint.
Like the spaceship's navigation system.
Right. Guiding its every move.
This is amazing. It's like a whole world inside a single cell.
It really is. And some bacteria have even more incredible features. Like some have these whip-like structures called flagella.
Flagella.
Yeah, they act like tiny outboard motors, propelling the bacteria through their environment.
So they can actually move around. I thought they just kind of floated around aimlessly.
Oh, no, they're much more sophisticated than that.
Wow.
And then there are peleus, which are like tiny grappling hooks.
Grappling hooks.
Yeah, they allow the bacteria to attach to surfaces or even exchange genetic material with other bacteria.
It's like a microscopic handshake.
Uh-huh, exactly. They're sharing secrets for survival.
So we've got these single-celled spaceships zipping around exchanging information. This is blowing my mind. But I'm guessing not all bacteria are created equal, right?
You're right. Just like there are different types of spaceships for different missions, there are different types of bacteria.
Makes sense.
The two main groups are archaebacteria and eubacteria. Think of them like distant cousins with distinct personalities and preferences.
Okay, I like that. So what makes these bacterial cousins different?
Well, one key difference is their preferred living arrangements. Archaebacteria are the adventurers of the bacterial world. They thrive in environments that would be lethal to most other organisms, like boiling hot springs, super salty lakes, even volcanic vents.
So they're like the extreme sports enthusiasts of the bacterial world.
Aha, exactly. They love the extreme. And they have special adaptations that allow them to thrive in these harsh conditions.
That's incredible. So they're like the ultimate survivors.
For sure. Take methanogens, for example. These archaebacteria actually produce methane gas as a byproduct of their metabolism.
Methane gas? Isn't that what cows are known for?
It is. And it's also produced by these amazing archaebacteria. Then you have halophiles. These guys love salt. They actually need it to survive.
Wow, so they're the opposite of slugs.
Pretty much. And then there are the thermophiles, which, as you might guess, love heat. They can handle scorching temperatures that would cook most other life forms.
It's mind-boggling how life can exist in such extreme environments.
It really is a testament to the diversity and resilience of life.
So what about the other bacterial cousins, the eubacteria? Where do they hang out?
Eubacteria are more like the everyday folks of the bacterial world. You find them in the soil, water, and even inside our bodies.
Okay.
They play essential roles in our lives and in the environment. For example, cyanobacteria are a type of eubacteria that are photosynthetic.
Photosynthetic, like plants.
Exactly. They use sunlight to produce energy and, in the process, release oxygen into the atmosphere.
So they're like tiny oxygen factories?
Exactly. They're responsible for a significant portion of the oxygen we breathe.
That's amazing. I never knew that.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And then there are proteobacteria, another type of eubacteria, that are involved in breaking down organic matter and recycling nutrients in the environment.
So they're like the cleanup crew of the ecosystem.
That's a great way to put it. They play a crucial role in keeping our planet healthy.
So we've got these extreme adventurers, the archibacteria, and then the everyday essential workers, the eubacteria. But how do they manage to survive in such diverse environments? What are their secrets to success?
Well, bacteria have evolved some incredible adaptations to thrive in all sorts of conditions. Think of it like a toolkit filled with specialized gadgets for survival.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these survival gadgets.
Well, one of their key adaptations is their cell wall. Unlike other organisms, bacteria have thick cell walls that provide extra protection against harsh conditions.
Like armor.
Exactly. It's like wearing armor in a dangerous world. And some bacteria take it a step further by forming endospores. These are like tiny escape pods that allow them to survive extreme temperatures, dryness, or even radiation.
Wow, so they can basically hit the pause button on life until conditions improve?
Precisely. It's like going into hibernation until the environment becomes more hospitable.
That's incredible. And what about those pili we talked about earlier?
Ah, yes, the grappling hooks. Well, they're not just for attachment. They also allow bacteria to exchange genetic material.
Oh, right, like trading tips and tricks for survival.
Exactly. This means they can share beneficial traits like antibiotic resistance with each other.
So they're constantly learning and adapting, sharing information to help each other thrive.
It's a remarkable system of cooperation and adaptation.
It really makes you appreciate the ingenuity of nature.
It does. And this ability to adapt and evolve is one of the main reasons why bacteria have been so successful for billions of years.
It's a fascinating story, and it makes you realize that bacteria are much more than just microscopic germs.
They're essential players in the grand scheme of life, playing both beneficial and sometimes harmful roles in our world.
And that brings us to the next chapter of our bacterial adventure, where we'll explore the two sides of bacteria, the good and the bad.
Should be interesting.
Definitely. Stay tuned, folks.
It's true. Bacteria are a bit like a double-edged sword. They can be both helpful and harmful.
Right. Like a friend who sometimes accidentally steps on your toes.
Uh-huh, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
We've got the pathogenic bacteria, the ones that can cause infections and make us sick.
The bad guys of the bacterial world.
Right. But even the bad guys have their own ways of surviving.
So how do these pathogenic bacteria actually cause harm? What are their tactics?
Well, they have a few sneaky tricks up their sleeves. Some produce toxins, which are basically like tiny poison darts that can damage our cells and disrupt our body's normal functions.
So they're like microscopic assassins.
In a way, yes. And then other bacteria, they invade our cells, directly taking over the cellular machinery and wreaking havoc from the inside.
That sounds like a scene straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It kind of is. And these bacterial invaders can lead to all sorts of problems, from relatively mild infections to really serious diseases.
I've definitely had my share of those mild infections like strep throat. It's the worst.
Strep throat is a classic example of a bacterial infection. It's caused by a bacterium called Streptococcus pyogenes.
And I remember getting ear infections all the time as a kid. Those were super painful.
Ear infections are often caused by bacteria, too. It's one of the most common reasons kids visit the doctor.
Makes sense. And then there are the more serious bacterial infections like pneumonia, which I know can be life-threatening, especially for older folks.
Pneumonia is a serious lung infection that can be caused by various bacteria, including Streptococcus pneumonia and Haemophilus influenza.
And what about tuberculosis? That's a bacterial infection, right?
Yes, tuberculosis, or TB, is caused by a bacterium called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It's a global health concern and can be quite challenging to treat.
It's amazing how these tiny organisms can have such a huge impact on our health.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of all living things, even at the microscopic level.
So we've talked about respiratory infections, but bacteria can cause problems in other parts of the body too, right? Like what about skin infections?
Absolutely. Our skin is the first line of defense against the outside world, and it's constantly bombarded by bacteria.
And sometimes those bacteria manage to sneak through and cause trouble.
Right. Think about common skin infections like impetigo, which causes those itchy sores, especially in kids, or cellulitis, which can make your skin red, swollen, and painful.
It's always a good reminder to keep those cuts and scrapes clean and covered.
Definitely. And speaking of keeping things clean, we can't forget about food poisoning, which is often caused by bacteria that contaminate our food.
Oh yeah. Food poisoning is no joke. I've definitely had a few run-ins with it in my life.
It's more common than you might think. Some of the usual suspects include salmonella, which can lurk in undercooked poultry or eggs, and E. coli, which can be found in contaminated water or undercooked meat.
And I've heard of botulism, which can be really dangerous.
Botulism is a serious illness caused by a toxin produced by the bacterium Clostridium botulinum. This toxin can paralyze muscles, including those involved in breathing, which is why botulism can be life-threatening.
So we've got all these pathogenic bacteria to worry about. But you mentioned earlier that bacteria can also be our friends. That seems kind of hard to believe after talking about all these nasty infections.
It might seem counterintuitive, but we actually rely on countless beneficial bacteria to keep us healthy. They live in our gut, on our skin, even in our mouths, forming complex communities that are essential for our overall well-being.
Wait, so we have trillions of bacteria living inside us right now?
We do. And most of them are actually doing us good. It's a symbiotic relationship. We provide them with a place to live, and they help us out in all sorts of ways.
That's crazy. So tell me more about these good bacteria and what they do for us.
Let's start with the gut, which is home to the largest and most diverse community of bacteria in our body. These gut bacteria play a crucial role in digestion.
Like breaking down food that we wouldn't be able to digest on our own.
Exactly. They have enzymes that can break down complex carbohydrates and fibers that our bodies can't handle. And they also produce essential vitamins like vitamin K and some B vitamins.
Wow, so they're like our own personal vitamin factories.
Uh-huh. In a way, yes. And these helpful bacteria also play a crucial role in training our immune system. They help it distinguish between friend and foe, which is essential for preventing allergies and autoimmune diseases.
That's incredible. They're not just helping us digest food, they're also teaching our immune system how to defend us.
It's a remarkable partnership.
Yeah.
And some beneficial bacteria even produce substances that inhibit the growth of harmful bacteria.
It's like they're fighting on our side, waging microscopic wars to keep us healthy.
It's a constant battle going on inside us, but luckily the good guys usually win.
So it's all about balance, right? We need to be aware of the pathogenic bacteria that can make us sick, but also appreciate the essential role that beneficial bacteria play in our health.
Exactly. It's a delicate ecosystem, and when it's in balance, everything runs smoothly. But when that balance is disrupted, that's when problems can arise.
Which brings us to the topic of antibiotics are weapons against those bacterial infections.
Right. Antibiotics are powerful tools that have revolutionized medicine, but they also come with some challenges.
Like antibiotic resistance, which I know is a growing concern. Can you explain what that means and why it's such a big deal?
Absolutely. Antibiotic resistance is a serious threat to global health.
Yeah.
It basically means that bacteria are evolving to become resistant to the antibiotics that we use to treat them.
So the antibiotics become less effective over time.
Exactly. And this happens through a process of natural selection. Bacteria are constantly mutating, and some of these mutations can make them less susceptible to antibiotics.
So when we use antibiotics, it kills off the susceptible bacteria, but the resistant ones survive and multiply.
Right, and these resistant bacteria can then spread to other people, making it harder to treat infections.
That's scary. So how does antibiotic resistance actually develop? What are the factors that contribute to it?
Well, one of the main drivers is the overuse and misuse of antibiotics.
Like when people take antibiotics for viral infections, which they can't treat?
Exactly. Antibiotics only work against bacteria, not viruses.
Yeah.
So taking them for a cold or the flu is not only ineffective, but it also contributes to antibiotic resistance.
It's like giving the bacteria a free training session, making them stronger and more resistant.
That's a good analogy. And another factor is that people often don't finish their full course of antibiotics, even if they start feeling better.
Why is that a problem?
When you stop taking antibiotics early, you may not have killed off all the bacteria, including those that are slightly more resistant. These survivors can then multiply and spread, potentially leading to a more resistant infection.
So it's really important to follow your doctor's instructions and complete the full course of antibiotics, even if you start feeling better before you finish all the pills?
Absolutely. It's crucial to use antibiotics responsibly to preserve their effectiveness. We don't want to lose these valuable tools in our fight against bacterial infections.
That's a great point. So we've got this delicate balance to maintain, with bacteria appreciating the good while defending against the bad. But knowing all this, how can we be smarter in our everyday lives to avoid those harmful bacteria and protect ourselves from infections? It's all about being smart and proactive, right? Like taking steps to protect ourselves and using antibiotics responsibly.
Exactly. It's not about living in fear of bacteria, but understanding how to minimize the risks.
Right. So what can we do in our everyday lives to stay healthy in this world of bacteria?
Well, a lot of it comes down to those basic hygiene practices we all learned as kids.
You mean like washing our hands?
Exactly. It sounds simple, but regular hand washing is one of the most effective ways to prevent the spread of germs.
I guess my mom was right all those times she made me wash my hands before dinner.
Uh-huh. Mothers usually are. And it's not just a quick rinse either. Aim for at least 20 seconds of scrubbing with soap and water, making sure to get under your nails and between your fingers.
20 seconds. That's longer than I thought.
It is. You can time it by singing Happy Birthday twice while you wash
Hmm.
you.
Oh, yeah, that's a good trick. And what about food safety? I know that's another important factor.
Absolutely. Cooking food thoroughly to the recommended temperatures kills harmful bacteria, and storing food properly prevents bacterial growth.
So always use a food thermometer and refrigerate leftovers promptly.
Exactly. And let's not forget about vaccinations.
Right. Vaccines are crucial for preventing many bacterial diseases.
They're one of the most effective public health interventions we have. Vaccines work by introducing a weakened or inactive form of the bacteria to our immune system, allowing it to develop antibodies without causing illness.
So it's like a training exercise for our immune system.
Exactly. That way, if we're ever exposed to the actual bacteria, our immune system is ready to fight it off.
Vaccines have saved countless lives and prevented so much suffering.
It's true. They're a testament to the power of science and public health.
So hygiene, food safety, and vaccinations are all key to staying healthy in this world of bacteria.
They are. And of course, being mindful of our antibiotic use is crucial as well.
Right. We talked about how antibiotic resistance is a serious problem, so we need to use antibiotics only when necessary and as directed by a healthcare professional.
Exactly. Don't pressure your doctor for antibiotics if they say you don't need them. And always complete the full course of antibiotics as prescribed, even if you start feeling better before you finish.
So it's all about being informed and making responsible choices.
It is. We can coexist with bacteria without living in fear of them. By understanding their role in our lives and taking simple precautions, we can stay healthy and appreciate the amazing diversity of the microscopic world.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a newfound respect for bacteria, both the good and the bad.
Me too. It's a fascinating world full of surprises.
It really makes you realize that we're all connected, even to these tiny organisms that we can't even see.
We are. It's a web of life, and we're all part of it.
So to our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring, and keep marveling at the wonders of the microbial world.
There's always something new to discover.
Thanks for joining us on this bacterial adventure. Until next time, stay curious and stay healthy.